Hey everyone, Mark Sisson here with a special edition of the Primal Blueprint podcast, a one-off edition. I had a chance to talk to my friend Christine Hassler, who is in Bali as we speak, but she has some pretty cool information that I think my audience would love to hear about. And with that in mind, I'm going to be doing this interview with her today to share some of this sort of, I'm going to say, a new insight, because, it's really not about health, and it's about health, but it's not about diet and exercise. It's really a different kind of health. It's about well-being and some of those things that we really don't touch on that much at Mark's Daily Apple, right? So a lot of you know Christine, but for those of you who don't, Christine Hassler is the best-selling author of 3 books, most recently Expectation Hangover, Free Yourself from Your Past, Change Your Present, and Get What You Really Want. She left a successful job as a Hollywood agent to pursue a life that she could be passionate about. For over a decade as a keynote speaker, retreat facilitator, where she is right now, spiritual psychologist and life coach, and host of the top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It. She's been teaching and inspiring people around the world. She believes that once we get out of our own way, we can show up to make the meaningful impact we're here to make. Now, I've seen this happen in real time with Christine. I've seen her change thousands of lives. That's one of the reasons that she's the coach's coach within the Primal Health Coach program. She is really, really effective. So I want to share some of her wisdom with you today. Here she is, Christine Hassler.
Yay. Thank you, Mark. Yes, I am in Bali. I usually don't have mosquito netting on my bed in California, here leading a retreat. And so I apologize in advance if at any point it kind of freezes a little bit. It's Bali internet, and that's just the way it is in Bali. But I'm so happy to be here. I love being a part of Primal Health Coach. It's just brought so much joy to my life. I love everything that you stand for, and I love your people. Like, they're awesome people. We actually have 2 people from the Primal Health Coach certification program here on this retreat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What fun.
Yeah. So it was really fun. Yeah. So like you said, I am so passionate about helping people get over it and on with it. And it really came from my own experience. From a young age, I was always really into health and fitness. I was doing wheatgrass shots in college when everybody was doing tequila shots, or more likely Jägermeisters, kind of like the college thing. It's not as sophisticated as tequila. And I got kind of the physical wellness part down, but the mental, emotional wellness part was a little more challenging for me. I was diagnosed with depression when I was 11. I was a high achiever to compensate for massive insecurity. And so I was able to create a lot on the outside world. Like, I was able to look healthy and exercise and work out. I was able to have a good job in Hollywood and make money. But inside, I wasn't able to really feel fulfilled, peaceful. I suffered from depression, like I said, anxiety. And then I had a point in my life where I lost everything. Like, my family fell apart. I got dumped by my fiance. I went into debt. My health actually got bad for kind of like the first time in my life. It got really bad. And it was a moment of realizing that everything, like the common denominator and all those things, was me. And I could either kind of go into a victim place of, why is this happening to me and I must not be lucky? Or I could go, okay, well, if I had something to do with creating all these things, maybe I can create something different. And that's what really triggered this just passion for personal development, for psychology, and for really having to understand how physical health goes with mental and emotional health as well.
So how did that transition into you becoming a coach?
Well, it was a surprise, actually. I after I left the Hollywood industry, I was a trainer. And I think we've all been trainers at some point in our life. And
everyone in LA has.
I know, everyone in LA, a lot of people in the primal community probably have as well. So I was doing personal training, but my clients would say to me, I like talking to you more than I like working out with you. I wasn't so great of a trainer, but I was really good at talking to them. And then I was writing my first book, 20-something, 20 everything. And I was interviewing a lot of women for the book because it was all about like being a 20-something woman. And then I was interviewing like our mother's generation as well. And I had a number of people say to me, can I set up a session with you? And I was like, why? I got all my questions answered. And I just kept hearing over and over, I really like talking to you. You have great guidance. Aren't you a coach? Aren't you a counselor? And I was actually studying with my coach. I met my first coach when I was 21, and she was a game changer for me. And she made such an impact on my life. And I think that when someone makes that much of an impact on you, often you're kind of called to the same sort of thing. And I went to her and I said, I think that I want to be a coach. It was a new thing. It was 2004 when I started. And so It wasn't as trendy as it is now. And she's like, yeah, I think that's part of what you're here to do. I'm going to help you. I'm going to train you. So that started in 2004. I went back to get my master's in spiritual psychology, where I met your wife and consequently you through Carrie at the University of Santa Monica in 2006. So I combine life coaching and NLP, and I have like a lot of business and entrepreneurship training and coaching with spiritual psychology, consciousness, health and healing, psychology, and just a lot of the woo-woo stuff out in the world. And Mark, I don't know if you know this,
Sure.
Go ahead.
No, just agreeing with you 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the path you're on.
Yes. And I was going to say my dad is a CPA, super logical and practical, and my mom is a therapist and very emotional. So I'm kind of this offspring of combining the practical and emotional. And that's what I really love to give people is, I think I had, speaking of an expectation hangover, which is disappointment, I think I took so many courses and tried so many things that maybe helped me a little bit, but left me with a kind of an expectation hangover because things weren't changing. And I know there's so many people out there who they have a lot of awareness. They've read every self-help book. They can psychoanalyze themselves to death, but they're not changing. Like things aren't changing. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, is between awareness and integration and actual change. And so my passion and what I love to do is help people close the gap. Like take all that awareness and drop it in and integrate it so you actually start changing and actually start healing and actually start living the life that you love. Because that's the place I got really stuck, is I had the awareness, but it was really frustrating to not see the changes in my life. And when they started to happen, I was like, oh, this is how you do it. And so that's what I love to teach.
So how do you do it? What is it that prevents people from changing?
Well, the main thing, and this is actually what I'm going to be teaching in the free masterclass that we're going to be talking about, is only 5% of our behavior is consciously driven. So let me repeat that. Only 5% of our behavior, choices, reactions, and responses and thoughts are consciously driven. That means a good 95% is unconscious. We're motivated and we're habituated by old hurts, old belief systems, old circumstances. And just like we upgrade our phone every year or two, whatever, we don't just get a new outside, the inside of it changes, the programming changes. And as human beings, in order to up level and upgrade, we have to change our internal programming. And since a lot of that is unconscious, we need ways to bring some of that unconscious to the conscious mind. And it's very possible. And that's how I really help people, is getting those old hurts, those old stories that you may not think of and you may not think are impacting you, to the forefront of your consciousness so that you can shift it and actually, and this is where the science fair winner in me geeks out, where you can actually change the neural nets in your brain. It's called neuroplasticity, and where you can actually change your brain wiring so that it's easier to have different behavior, different thoughts, different emotional responses, and everything like that. So I am like a human detective. I love helping people not just understand themselves, but understand themselves to a degree that they can start to bring more of the unconscious to the conscious and actually start to change it. So simply put, it's bringing what we don't want to look at or haven't looked at, or we might not even been aware of, to awareness, and then having tools to actually change it. And how I do it is on 4 levels: emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual. Because like you, I'm very holistic. I don't think you can treat just one area of your life and expect change.
So would you say that that's a combination that makes your coaching practice unique?
Yes, absolutely. And, I am my own best client. I don't teach anything that hasn't worked on me. And I'm really blessed. I've had some amazing teachers. My first coach, who was just incredible, she was a very special person, is no longer even alive anymore. And between her and other people that I've learned from and I've studied from and training that I've done, I feel like I've taken, really, I mean, I started when I was 21. So I've taken just, almost 2 decades of my own information and condensed it into what I have found works the best, but not just for me, but thousands of people. And, what people tell me about me and my work is, I bring a lot of compassion and understanding to it. I wouldn't say I'm a tough love coach. I definitely will push people, but not in a you're doing it wrong and you need to have more courage and just do it, because that will push people to a certain extent. But from my point of view, it feels much better to be pulled than pushed. And I like to paint a beautiful vision for people and really help them understand. That's another thing we're going to be doing on the master class, is really getting to like, what's your purpose and what's your vision and why are you here? And when we can have that vision that pulls us forward, it's so much easier to make change, to create change. It's such a gentler approach to be looking at what we want to move toward versus pushing what we want to get away from. So there's a way that we all need to learn how to be more compassionate with ourselves. I think a lot of us, especially those of us that are driven, tend to use self-criticism and being hard on ourselves as a form to motivate ourselves. And a big shift for me was moving from being a motivated, driven person to a purpose-driven, inspired person. And that's a much less stressful and depleting way to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going back a little bit, you talk about the story that we all tell ourselves, the tapes that run, that non-upgraded version of the new self.
Yep.
Because that story stays there. How is it that our story hurts us?
Well, the thing is, so we have this story. So I'll give you an example from my story. So I had a lot of like teasing and being ostracized from my peer group at a young age. And so immediately when that happened, I formed the story of something's wrong with me. I'm not lovable or likable and I don't belong. And not belonging is, I think, one of the most painful things that human beings feel, like not belonging somewhere. And whenever we feel that kind of sense of separation, we have to come up with a way to feel more than. I call it a compensatory strategy. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be teaching in the master class is what's your compensatory strategy, because it becomes part of your story. So part of my compensatory strategy, which became part of my story, was, well, if I'm not liked and I don't fit in, then I'm going to be a high achiever. And that's how I'm going to prove my worth. That's how I'm going to be like a worthy human being, because that must all be I have. So the thing about that story is it was effective in the sense
hey, that's my story.
I stole your story, Mark. I think many people.
It's all right.
I know. Well, but it's a very similar story for a lot of high achievers, and part of what makes the story addictive is that, and the plus of it is you can create a lot of results, but the cost of it is enough never feels like enough. It's like you achieve one thing and then it's what else, what else, what else, what else, when our worth is attached to our accomplishment. And the other thing with our story is how it hurts us is we continue to collect evidence that proves it's true. Like we like to be right about our story, even if we don't like it. So if we have a story that people abandon me and life is really hard, then that kind of, you continue to play that out. You continue to attract people and circumstances, people that abandon you and things that feel hard because you believe that. And we like to be right about our story because we believe it so fiercely, even though it's not what we want. So part of changing our story is being willing to let go of it. And I have found you can't just do that mentally. Part of how we have to let go of our story is go back and deal with it on the emotional level and go back to those kind of significant events that were the catalyst to forming these belief systems and approach them in a different way so that we can have a new story that's more of the story we want to tell. And that's something that I teach in my mastery course that that isn't just something I can 5 minutes do here, because it does take a little time.
Sure.
However, it's completely possible to change your story.
Well, that's good news. Now, if you change your story, along with the story changing, is a new set, I would expect, of expectations.
Right.
And, we talk a lot about expectations and how to set them, how to monitor them, how to not be attached to them necessarily, but to use them in a way that's positive. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yes. So many of us have expectations, and I caution against expectations, because you might end up with an expectation hangover, which is when things don't go according to plan, or they do go according to plan, but you don't feel like you thought you would. Like you get that great job or career and you're still not happy, or you make that money and you still don't feel as successful as you thought, or you finally fall in love, but you still don't feel confident, or whatever your when-thens were, and you accomplish them and you're like, wait a second, this didn't fix it. Or life just throws you an unexpected curveball. You get laid off, you get broken up with, and you get, or you get diagnosed with an illness or something like that. And so when it comes to expectations, we have a lot of attachment, and we tend to put our emotional okayness, our happiness, our fulfillment, we tend to make it dependent on a result. That's what attachment is. And so I like to teach about pursuing our goals with the secret sauce of avoiding expectation hangovers, which is high intention and involvement. Go for it, have high intention, believe it's going to happen, but low attachment, meaning you're not making your okayness dependent on the result. Because what I've learned as a human, as a business person, as a daughter, as someone who's dating, as a friend, is that the process of creating anything, that's really where the magic is. That's really where the learning is. The result is the cherry on top. And if we can really enjoy the process and not live in when-thens, then we live a much more fulfilling, expectation-free life. And the other thing is we have to take responsibility for not projecting expectations. I think a big reason people end up with expectation hangovers is because they expect people in their life to be mind readers. So I always tell my clients, create agreements with people in your life, not expectations. This is big in marriage. I see a lot of people test their spouse.
Sure.
If she really knew me, or if he really knew me, he would know that this is what I want. And it's no one's a mind reader. Create agreements, and also accept people for who they are. We can't change people. And one of my favorite things that I say is, don't go to a Chinese restaurant when you want nachos. Accept the people in your life that are Chinese restaurants. Know you can only get Chinese food from them, even if you bring them the ingredients for nachos, and figure out who the people are in your life that you can go to for different things instead of expecting someone to change. That's a big reason we end up with expectation hangovers. We just keep going to the same person over and over, hoping we finally get the validation we want from them. And they just can't give it to us. They may be someone that's just more critical of us in our life. So we've got to take responsibility for getting what we need from different people.
Agreed. So there are people who don't necessarily want more. Mm-hmm. They're just going, they're maybe not going through any kind of disappointment. They're not, they're maybe just a little bit stuck in a rut, but they're not in bad shape. Are they prone to the next level of happiness? I mean, what's the, what about the sort of average plodding through life person?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that concerns me about people who are just in the routine and who may have a sense of nothing feels terribly wrong or nothing feels terribly right. In so many research studies, the biggest thing that people say on their deathbed is what they regret not doing. And my concern for people that are just going through the routine of life is you're going to have regret. And that's why I'm calling the masterclass the No Regrets Masterclass, because we can't get back time. You can recover from a risk. You can recover from making a change. You can recover from failure, but you cannot get back time. And so if you're just in a rinse and repeat life, are you really living into your potential? And 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, are you going to regret not really living into your potential? And how we really live into our potential is we just remove the obstacles that are in the way from seeing it. So even if you're in like a rinse and repeat life, there's an obstacle there. There's a comfort zone you're in because you're scared to go to the next level. And I'd freaking love to help you remove that obstacle so you can get to the next level. And so you aren't a robot. So you aren't in rinse and routine, so that you can really feel like you're living on purpose and fulfilled and making the impact and having the relationships you want.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the details of this mastery class. It's very exciting.
Yes. And I waited a long time in my career before I was doing any kind of online programs. And the masterclass is a free video class. There's going to be replays. And like I said, it's a no regrets masterclass. I'm going to be talking about, remember I mentioned the compensatory strategies and I mentioned those unconscious behaviors. So I'm going to be teaching about how you bring the unconscious more to the conscious. You're going to get a workbook where you're going to identify your compensatory strategy. And I'll give you a hint. It's something you're really good at that's not good for you. And I'm going to teach you how to transform it and really step into your superpowers, which is going to be awesome. And we're also going to talk about purpose. Like I said, like it's people, this is something that I think as a human being, we crave for connection, we crave for belonging, and we crave to matter. Like we want to matter. And your purpose may not be in the form of a career, but you definitely have a purpose. And it's not as hard as you think to find it. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And then I'll also have the opportunity to answer questions. It'll be, if you're on the webinar live, it'll be live. And then at the end of the webinar, you'll have an invitation to come join me for my personal mastery course. And this, I'm so excited about this course, Mark. It's like I said, it's all the things that I've learned over all these years, and it's in a 6-week course, and there's video trainings, there's meditations, there's one-on-one live coaching with me. I go through the course live with you. There's a Facebook community, and that's where you really dive in and identify what you want to get over, what obstacles you want to get over, and really what you want to get on with, what you want to create. And we journey through the emotional, mental, behavioral, and spiritual, which has nothing to do with religion, but has more to do with finding that connection, finding that oneness, connecting to your intuition. We journey through all these levels so that you actually can have lasting change and feel unstuck. Because like I said, I'm passionate about helping people really create lasting change, not temporary quick fix change, but when you really go in and heal some things that are in your way. I remember when I was going through my divorce, people would say to me, oh, time heals all wounds. And I would say, I don't really want to wait for time to heal my wounds. Like I want to figure out, like, how do I heal them now? How do I heal them quickly so that I can move on with my life and not be a victim of my circumstances? And so if you're somebody that is willing to dive in and to heal some stuff, because we all have stuff, and you don't want to wait for time, and you don't want to live a rinse and repeat life, and you want to bring more of that 95% unconscious to the conscious, then absolutely join me for the masterclass on October 11th. Could you hear me? I think
fantastic. And I would add, yeah, I a little bit of that cut out, so we'll repeat it before the end. But I would recommend to any of the listeners or viewers in this case, who have done all the work on the diet and done all the work on the exercise and gotten their sleep dialed in and gotten their sun exposure and they're playing enough, but something is still maybe missing. Maybe there's something that, you're not getting to that spot where you feel really good about your life, if that you're really, depressed, but you're not great opportunity to look at some of those aspects of your own life and literally work with Christine and for lack of a better term, fix them, heal them, make them right, and get to the point where you are enjoying the most out of life. You're living an awesome life. Yeah. So, but let's just be sure people got that, repeat the details of it one more time.
Sure. And let's just ask for the Bali internet gods to not freeze me. So The free masterclass, which is totally free, is October 11th at 5 p.m. Pacific. Mark will provide you with all the links in this, and that's free. And then I'll be talking to you about a bonus to join me for my Over It and On With It Mastery course. There will be replays for the masterclass if you can't make it live. At the very least, sign up for it so you get the notifications about it. I'd love to share with you. I'd love to teach you in that class and to help you really live a life of no regrets. That's how I'm here to serve.
I know that to be true. Thanks for joining us, you listeners. And Christine, thanks for this great conversation, interrupted occasionally by the Bali internet gods all the way from Bali.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to participate. So take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.